Hey guys, welcome.
Your video kind of paused. Jesus. Oh man, I hate when that happens.
Episode that we did for the podcast talking about Mustafa's why he left his religion, but due to technology defects and then it being off the top of our heads, we weren't able to go into too much detail about what's going on. So Mustafa and I decided, for the sake of the audience, and for sake of keeping it intellectually honest, to make a presentation with a lot of evidences and research as to why we made or we made the choice of leaving our own religions.
Yeah.
Today's mainly supposed to be Mustafa telling his story, so I'm going to try to interject as less as possible unless I have a question.
Okay.
So based off of that, let me just introduce Christian's website in the gamertech.ca, $25 discount for any purchase you make on his site if you use the promo code Nik. The link and the details will be in the description. And also, we're going to have a certain fundraiser to help various victims of religion, either with Afghanistan or a cause that's really close to Mustafa as well. We're going to put out the logistics and have a GoFundMe in the description for this, for those causes, which you guys can donate if you like the content. So, Mustafa, over to you. You can share screen. I think you have a presentation to give.
Yeah, hang on a second. Let me just, all right, just give me a second here. Okay, where's StreamYard? There you are. Okay, so I'm just gonna bring this slide here because I have a lot of slides open.
Yeah. And while you're bringing that up, I'll just make a small announcement to anyone who feels personally attacked. I need you guys to know that this isn't a personal attack against anyone. It's a personal attack of an ideology. There is nothing racist about this because we're not insulting it. More so, we're giving a critique as to why we think it's wrong. Same way we would tell why scientific theory is wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Can you see my screen? Now.
Instead of a Chrome tab that doesn't always work, share entire screen and then play it as a presentation.
Oh, okay. Hang on. So share. Okay, hang on. I'll have to delete a lot of these links. One sec. I have a lot of links open.
Yeah.
Just give me a second. Just there's so much. I was actually researching a lot, right? So, it's just a lot. All right, there we go. So let me just share. Whoop, wait, hang on. Share screen. Share screen. Entire screen. Doesn't show me the option of entire screen. Window. Okay, hang on. Actually, try this again. Let's try this again. Can you see it?
No. How about we end this? Yeah.
Wait. Hang on. Screen, share screen. I'm gonna try the full screen, okay? Share. Yeah. Can you see the presentation?
I can't.
You cannot.
Let me try this. How about this? I'll come on in my computer and then we can start from there. It'll probably, yeah. I'll edit this portion out. We'll see how it shows up in my computer.
In your computer, yeah. Let's try that. Because it's weird that it's not showing up in your end. Like I'm sharing the screen. And I just stop it.
Yeah, I'll edit this portion out.
Okay.
But yeah, once we can get that presentation going, that's when we'll actually have the entire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you share your screen again?
All right, let me try the full screen. Share screen. How about now?
Yeah, so now I can see it.
And can you see
All right, so guys, sorry, yeah.
Can you
I
see
can
the
see everything. Sorry, yeah. Sorry, guys, for the technical difficulties.
All right.
But yeah.
So hang on. All right. So should I be?
You probably want to make it full screen. Yeah.
All right. One sec. The presentation full screen?
Yeah.
All right.
Or else the font will be a bit small to read.
Full screen. How do I do full screen? All right.
Yeah, this shows that you're an actual lawyer and not like a tech guy.
Yeah.
Like me.
Hang on. Hang on. Oh, present. There we go. There's the.
Yeah.
All right. So this is. You can see this, right?
Yeah, I can see this.
Perfect. Okay. So this is going to be a sort of a short presentation on. I hope it's not going to be short. Actually, it's going to be a long ass presentation.
Take all the time you need. We want to be thorough with all the facts.
Okay. And this is why I left Islam by Mustafa Ali Rashid, which is my real name. All right, let's begin. So I listed like a short, a number of reasons. So first thing I mentioned was belief in the supernatural beings with no good evidence. The second was the founder and prophet Muhammad is not a perfect person, as Muslims claim. The third is Prophet Muhammad may not even be a real person. The fourth reason is it borrows from like debunked or Jewish and Christian myths, so from their mythology, and they're not even actual facts. There's also a dubious history of the Quran's authorship as well, because there's the claim that the Quran is the word of God, but then it's very like how it was written down. Because the Quran claims to be a word of God, but it only narrates ancient legends and myths, and also makes some massive claims. And then there's also a lot of conveniently timed Quranic verses, lots of convenient timing. Then there's borrowed rituals, legends, and beliefs from Zoroastrianism as well. Then one of the big ones was it discriminates against women, pedophilia, and forced marriage of young girls. It discriminates against Christians and Jews specifically, and it also discriminates against non-believers. Islam has a lot of like homophobia, killing of members of the LGBTQ+. I listed more reasons because I was actually like, doing more research. Like, there's more reasons to this. There's a lot of harsh and cruel punishments for petty crimes and relatively harmless activities. It also easily accepts converts, but allows the discrimination and killing of apostates. It also punishes free speech and expression. aka blasphemy laws. It uses the fear of hell and the reward of paradise to keep the followers in line. And the heaven has like it's a full-on male fantasy of sex and drinking and being lazy, whatnot. And what's surprising is that only believers enter heaven. Like monotheists. I'll be more specific on this. Monotheists only enter heaven, which is I found a bit weird. There's also like a point system, or you call a sawab, to enter heaven or gain more points to gain a better chance to enter heaven. There's also like a lot of like failed prophecies and weird doomsday fantasies and unrealistic beliefs. I might not touch on the unrealistic beliefs because like I already covered a lot, so it might overlap a bit. It also promotes Arab supremacy. A lot of people are not willing to admit this. People talk about European colonialism, but nobody talks about Arab colonialism and Arab supremacy. And one of the mechanisms they've used is Islam. And then it also creates a precedent for groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Taliban, etc. It also promotes like war and genocide, and it promotes a lot of infighting too within sects, within Islam as well. And also has a very unreliable like historic origins. So
yeah, before you continue there, I just want to ask for everyone, like for anyone who is watching. Yeah, so I just want to ask what makes this different than Islamophobia?
Okay, what makes it different from Islamophobia? First of all, Islamophobia is a made-up term. Islamophobia is, it sort of like categorizes everyone from anti-Muslim bigots to critics of Islam into one category. Whereas that doesn't make them one necessarily, because I myself a critic of Islam and an ex-Muslim myself, a former follower of Islam, should not be labeled an Islamophobe or in the same category as an anti-Muslim bigot, because a bigot can discriminate against Muslims based on the fact that they're Muslims. Like they will treat them differently, they will, imprison them. What China is doing right now with the Uyghur Muslims, that is discrimination right there. That is discrimination. What we're doing is criticizing the ideology. The idea, and this is an idea you can convert to, that is. So this ideology should not be free from any criticism. And Islamophobia, even though it was invented in the 1970s, it caught on in 2001 with 9/11, post 9/11. I know there were good intentions with the word Islamophobia, but it has become like a weaponized term to shut down any criticism. I think that I hope that answers your question. Nick? You there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I just want to bring up that point for anyone who does ask, because this was a lot of this brings up a lot of questions, or people might have an issue with the statements that you made. So I just want to ask, why isn't it Islamophobia?
Yeah, okay. And this is just a critiquing. This is explaining my experiences with Islam and why I chose to reject Islam. And, this should be normalized. Dissent should be normalized. And these voices like myself should not just be shut down. On to the next slide. We'll go to the next slide. So I will bring up how I will evaluate Islam. I may not completely stick to this, but, I will reference these at a time. So the Quran, the first, to analyze my reasons to leave Islam. The second is the tafsir and explanations of the Quran by various authors, and the hadith and sayings of Muhammad. So this is something I will use. I'll use the seerah and biography of Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hassam, the earliest biographers of Muhammad's life. Then I'll also use the rulings in the different sects, the schools of thought of Islam, mainly the 4 Sunni schools of thought, which include Hanbali, Hanafi, Shafi, and Maliki. And the Shia one, I only will do one, Isna Ashari or Jafari, because I am a former Shia Jafari Muslim. And also this is the most, this one has the most followers as well, the Isna Ashari. I'll also kind of brush over the various rulings of Muslim countries that follow or borrow Islamic law. I'll post opinions of scholars as well. And I may even consider some oral tradition, and I may, if there's no quote in it, assume it's an oral tradition that I heard, or something that I grew up with. So these all aspects, facets we're going to look into before we evaluate the reasons why I left Islam. And I actually evaluate all of them. All right. Now, this one's going to be super general. Belief in supernatural beings without evidence. So it is essential in Islam to believe in Allah to be the one and only God, and that there is no scientific, observable, measurable, for any evidence for the existence of this particular being. There are only claims of this being, but these claims have not been substantiated. He also has a divine caste, which is similar to the other Abrahamic faiths, the Jews and the Christians, which includes the angels. Then he has an arch nemesis, Satan, who he himself creates. I actually told Nick that I'll do a separate presentation on Satan as well, because Satan was one of the big reasons I started to doubt, but I won't discuss Satan. This is my focus on Islam right now. There's creatures like Gog and Magog. There's the Dajjal, who's the one-eyed Cyclops. The flying donkey or horse, the Burak. There's also the jinn, who are supernatural beings. People know it best as the genie from Aladdin. There's an Ifrit, who's the most powerful of the jinn. There's different kinds of jinn as well. Then there's the Huris, that are virgins of heaven with very big breasts. And then there's also like the beast of the earth. It's like a beast that comes from within the earth, and he passes judgment as well. So, these are supernatural beings. There's no scientific, observable evidence to actually prove that these beings exist. It's like proving, are unicorns real? You can't really, or it's like, you can't necessarily prove that they're real or not real. Like, you don't have any evidence. So the believers of this religion haven't exactly provided good evidence for the existence of such beings. All right, well, moving on. So this one's more oral. Prophet Muhammad, as a person, he's not a perfect individual. One is, I wanted to touch on this claim. He wasn't the first one to claim that he was the seal of prophets or the final prophet. Mani, the founder of Manichaeism, was one of the first known ones who claimed that he was the seal of prophets or the final prophet. He also wasn't the only one who claimed prophethood. There was Musaylama as well, and there was Tulaiha as well. And then there were a few others within that same region, belonging to the same time period, who also claimed prophethood. I think Hassan Radwan, I took this quote from Hassan Radwan. The truth is perhaps somewhere in the middle, but Islamic texts do not exactly portray him in a very flattering light. I will share other stories of Muhammad that do provide the reasons why I left Islam. On one hand, the Quran says in chapter 33, verse 21, that he's the role model for mankind. And according to Ibn Ishaq's biography, he settled a dispute between the tribes over the black stone, like who gets the honor to put the black stone to finish the building of the Kaaba. So the two tribes are arguing, and then it's like, oh, okay, I'll put this black stone over like a cloth, and then you guys both carry the cloth, and I'll just put the black stone in. Perfect. Then there's also like Sunan al-Bihqaqi, in which before a battle, he says, he orders not to kill a woman or a child. So this is okay, something noble. But on the other hand, in Ibn Ishaq's biography, he orders the killing of entire Banu Qurayza's men, with boys as young as those who had just grown pubic hair. And what does he do with the women? He takes them and sells them to slavery. This is in Surah of Ibn Ishaq. And, this sort of like, so I've sort of just given an introduction of the dichotomy of the characteristics of Muhammad. Like on one hand, he's like this cruel person. On the other, he's like, this role model, kind of a nice guy. And then another aspect I wanted to look into is Muhammad may not even be a real person. Because he's believed to have lived between 570 and 632, the 632 CE. But there's no documented that chronicles in his adventures from his supposed lifetime. Now Muslims then shout and say, oh, he's mentioned in the Quran. Hang on. He's only mentioned in the Quran 5 times. And the Quran wasn't even authored during his lifetime. So, and in the Quran, he's mentioned in 5 specific chapters. This may not even be a name, but a title to him. Oh man, I forgot to mention the Quranic chapters. Oh well, next time. Next time I'll actually like post we'll post it in the description that I'll mention the chapters as well. Okay, Nick?
Yeah, we'll put the
Okay.
for this specific slide, we'll put the citations and verses in the description for
I'll
people to
put
look.
citations in the verses. Okay. So the first biography for Muhammad is written by Ibn Ishaq. This guy lived between 704 and 768. So let's assume he wrote this in the 760s. That's 130 years after Muhammad just died. Ibn Ishaq. And later, his biography is edited by another fellow named Ibn Hisham, who died in the 833 CE. So this is in the 830s already. So we have
and
200 years
and
gap.
Mustafa,
Yeah.
just a quick question as well. There's also a fallacy of his death during this time as well, because he was poisoned, but wasn't he supposed to have taken the cure during that time as well? It's almost like a story plot hole at that point.
That in itself, it's a weird plot hole, like he mentions dates, but I kind of want to focus on the historicity of it, because I don't find that a little relevant to the subject matter.
No, I mean, like, the reason why I say that is because if he is an all-powerful prophet that claimed by so-and-so text and all, because all this they can be arguing and all, but the biggest plot hole that they can't argue for that would probably, like, such a powerful man in their point of view, why did he die from the very thing he already had the anecdote for? It seems like a huge plot hole.
Yeah, I think I get your point. Like, he knew when he was supposed to die, or like, he knew everything from the creator of the universe. How did he get deceived by poisoning? I get what your point is. Yeah, okay. Now that's a good point. We'll consider that. I'll have to look into that too. Like, I did read that story, but I found like that, like, a Jewess poisoning his meat, I found that a little irrelevant. But now that you bring it up, I remember you brought it up with the dates too, like dates are the cure for even poison, right? So that kind of like contradicts his teachings as well. Now, however, I'm focusing more on just the historicity as well, because this dates thing is actually mentioned in the Hadith, which is written by Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, etc., who write the Hadith and Sunnah. And this is in the 9th century. So we're already 300 years removed from the events of his death. And finally, we get Tabari's history, which is in the 10th century, so the 900s. So we're already like almost 400 years gone from that time period. So 300 plus years at least. So we're kind of like, so we've taken this account for granted. And this is where someone can argue that this may not even be a real person, this Muhammad, but a combination of people, because everything we know about him, it comes from like sources from centuries after. So what can
I think it's the same. Isn't it the same? Isn't it the same thing for Jesus as well? Just like to bring in
a very similar,
not to make it isolated to one.
Yeah, a very similar situation. Like everything, even for Jesus, comes like decades or almost a century after. With Muhammad, it's a lot worse, because it's more.
And like I remember for like the Roman Empire, their bookkeeping and documentation of everything is on par with a lot of modern countries and such,
and
without the use of electricity. But they had no tally or record of both prophets. Whereas they have something about Moses, I believe, but like nothing to do with.
And keep in mind, the Roman Byzantine Empire as well as the Persian Sasanian Empire both existed during the time of Muhammad. Nobody heard of him at this time, which is weird. it seems like
Yeah,
nobody
their
heard.
book. Yeah, like I trust their bookkeeping, and the fact that their bookkeeping didn't have a record of this
Yeah.
when they had a
So
clear record of other prophets. It's because they had a lot of people that they did crucify for trying to start a religion at that time.
yeah, I think like some messianic movements they started, which they crucified like a bunch of people in the first century.
Yeah,
But yeah, they have even a war which is documented as well, the war between the Persians and the Romans that's going on. Sure, one can make the argument that, oh, the Persians and Romans were at war, but then Heraclius also received a letter from Muhammad as well, according to Sahih al-Bukhari. Where's that letter? Heraclius is the emperor of the Byzantine Roman Empire at this time. Where's that letter from supposedly Muhammad? Or his interaction with Abu Sufyan, specifically. That's nowhere to be seen. So everything we know comes 2 centuries later, and the Romans just don't bother writing about it. So yeah, so the historicity is very doubtful. So that's one of the reasons I also reject Islam. Now, another thing I wanted to go into is the borrowing from Jewish and Christian myths. So the first story is the story of Zulqarnain, which was Alexander. And this was influenced by the Alexander Romance legends, multiple ones actually, like the Ethiopic version, you had the Syriac version, and you also had like the Christian versions. So multiple versions did influence parts of the Quran, but also specifically this chapter 18, verse 83 to 101, which states the story of Alexander. He traps he goes from east to west, sees the setting sun in like, a puddle of water, a black puddle of water. So that story has been influenced by the Alexander Romance legends. Then we have the Sleepers of Ephesus by Gregory of Tours, Jacob of Syro, Simeon the Methaprast. I hope I'm not butchering that. These guys lived in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th century. This is like 200, 300 years before the birth of Islam. And this story is mentioned in 18:9, 20 to 26. This Quranic...
Now, just to bring to that point as well,
Yeah.
someone like we gotta nip this thing in the butt before it gets
Mhm.
too advanced.
Yeah.
One might say that Islam was started at the beginning of time, or
Right.
like any religion, Abrahamic faiths, that in our entire sect was started
Mhm.
at the beginning of time with the first prophet, Adam,
Yeah.
the conception of man. So they might all say that these guys were all prophets under the Abrahamic faith or whatever, or legends or kings or whatever under that.
Well,
So for the borrowed myths from these faiths, why is that not the
why is that
correct
not?
case?
Okay, that's a very big assumption that they make, that it was the same. It's kind of like a cop out. The reason I may say that it's a cop out is because there is no evidence of Islamic practice prior to the 7th century, or 8th century rather. Even the Abrahamic practices were very different from the Islamic practices. And even before that, the earliest Abrahamic practice we can find, the turning point is 586 BCE. You can make an argument for 1000 BCE, okay, but that's just 3,000 years old. Anything before that is a blur. We have no archaeological evidence for any like prayers that are happening in a mosque. There's no mosques from more than 3,000 years ago. There's no like Qibla directions. There's nothing of no evidence of like, wearing hijabs and all that. Like maybe not hijabs or like, the specific Islamic practices. There's no evidence for that. So saying that, oh, they were already Muslims or they were prophet is very academically dishonest, because Islam's conception, according to history, is the 7th century, which is agreed upon. So
Yeah.
And these traditions existed prior to Islam, and these are, Jacob of Syro, Gregory of Tours, Simeon the Metaphrast, are writing fictional accounts. They're not even writing actual accounts. These are fictional stories. And this is found.
Yeah, so I was just gonna ask, like, So on that note, for those who say that, let's say Jesus and Moses and Adam were all prophets, then Muhammad was the final prophet who made the final message. That would that be intellectually dishonest, or is that a legitimate argument?
It's not a good argument because, one, they haven't even established Adam, Moses, and Abraham or Jesus even existed. They haven't even established that. And they haven't even established that they were even prophets or even historical figures to begin with. So we can't even begin there. So that's where the argument completely falls flat. So if anything, you can't really, like, what do you call it? Even if we assume that these are prophets, where's the archaeological evidence that there was Islamic practice, or Islam was the name used prior to the 7th century? Is there?
Yeah, and from that region as well, like
Exactly.
I know that Allah is the Arabic name, but why don't they use Yahweh, the
Exactly.
original name of the God in the Abrahamic faiths? In
Even
the
Yahweh, you bring up a very interesting point about Yahweh and Elohim, which I want to do a separate uh, presentation on as well. So remind me to do a separate presentation on Yahweh and Elohim and the origins of Jewish belief, because even according to archaeology, Jewish belief originated from polytheism. And prior to 2,000, 3,000 years prior to this, most of us were polytheists. Most human civilizations were polytheists. So there's no evidence of monotheism. There's no evidence of monotheism. So where can you really get that argument from? Because we find no archaeological evidence of any form of monotheism. We just find pagan gods. Hinduism can make that argument that it's in the old religion, but it's not even the oldest polytheist religion. There's others that are far older than Hinduism as well.
Yeah, the Egyptian era religion, the
Greeks,
polytheism with like bringing the Ra and all the Ra, and then you got the Greeks as well. Like they lasted a lot longer than the Abrahamic faiths.
Yeah. And they have a long tradition, 3,500 BCEs, like the earliest we can trace them back to. So these traditions, like, they're very long. So like we don't find any evidence of like any form of monotheism. Just the Egyptian Anketan, I'm probably butchering that name. There's an Egyptian religion, but that was also temporary too, and was mainly based on the sun. So you really can't make an argument for a monotheistic God for that one, specifically the Abrahamic one. So yeah, I think we can move on to the point of the sleepers of Ephesus. Yes, I was at the sleepers of Ephesus. The Quranic account has a dog somehow, but it can't decide whether there are 3, 5, or 7 sleepers. Because keep in mind, Gregory, Jacob, Simeon all had 7 sleepers. But I think according to a paper by Bartholomew Grisa, I'm probably butchering that name, they stated that Christians of Najran believed that there were 3 brothers who disappeared into the cave. They slept for 200, 300 years. This is a story where they slept for 200, 300 years. And while East Syriac Christians believed there were 5 sleepers of the cave. So that's why there's the discrepancy. So Islam, the Quran's author might be like bringing all these legends together. So there's definitely borrowing from Jewish and Christian myths. Another Jewish myth that I found was the Talmud Mishnah 4:5, Sanhedrin. I'm probably butchering that too. It's from the 2nd century, and this influenced Quran chapter 5, verse 32. It is also influenced by the Jerusalem Talmud Sanhedrin, which says whoever destroys a soul is considered to have destroyed the entire world, or whoever kills a soul, kills a man, consider him he killed all of humanity. That's the verse every Muslim throws around. But guess what? It's not original. It was copied from a Jewish Talmud. So, and the Talmud is basically Jewish oral law. So, if anything, like this was also written in the 2nd century. This is 400 years prior to even the whiff of Islam, that is. So that's another Jewish myth. Yes, so in Genesis, which is in the Torah, chapter 19, verse 8, Lot, who was a prophet, offers his two daughters, who also have husbands, to a gang of very horny gay rapists in Sodom and Gomorrah. And this is where they get horny for like angels, but then they deny that, oh, we don't want your daughters, we want the angels. So a man just offered his daughters to a bunch of rapists to save angels. He offers his two daughters instead of, finding another way. Isn't that fucked up? Now, this story is repeated in the Quran, chapter 11, verse 78, as well as 1571. Please, guys, go check this out for yourself. This exact story is mentioned. The Quran, chapter 27, verses 16 to 44, were also plagiarized by the Targum of Esther, which was written in the 4th century. This is the story of Solomon, who's trying to get the throne of Sheba, and then, Queen Sheba, he meets Sheba, and she raises the entire skirt. It's a long story, but, she enters his palace, she's mesmerized by it. So this story was also copied from the Targum of Esther, which was in the 4th century, another Jewish myth. And these are just a handful of Jewish Christian myths, and I have there's a lot more legends that were borrowed from other polytheistic and Sumerian myths as well that I personally did not have the time to, because I wanted to focus on some specific Jewish and Christian myths, and you guys get the point. Jewish and Christian myths, like I wanted to specify a few examples. Now, we also talk about the dubious history of the Quran's authorship as well. Now, I'm not pulling this out of my ass. This is written in Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 9, book 89, hadith 301, where Zayd bin Sabit has been ordered by Omar, who is yet to be the second caliph during the reign of Abu Bakr, that to compile the Quran. And keep in mind, this is 2 years after Muhammad has died. And a lot of people who had memorized Muhammad's message, which is the Quran, which was his biggest miracle, died in the Battle of Yamama. Please do not answer Yo Mama jokes here, please.
Yo Mama.
All right. Now, during Usman's caliphate, he finds that the Quran has multiple dialects, because Arabic had multiple dialects. So he canonizes only one version, which is the Quraysh dialects, and orders the rest to be burned. That's kind of fishy for me, And why not keep those other versions? Why destroy all of them? Why destroy the evidence? Why not just label them, oh, this is the wrong version? And, he's practically burning Qurans, if anything. So if God's message is not consistent, that, it's getting lost in translation practically. And one caliph, has to canonize his particular version, assuming, what if this is not even the correct version? So those were also that raised my doubts as well. What if this is not even the correct version? And also there's the Birmingham manuscript of the Quran, which only has 3 chapters. I recall it has chapter 18, 19, and 20. And it only has parts of those chapters too. So it isn't even there's no complete Quran even in the early manuscripts too. So we kind of don't have a lot of evidence and so there's a lot of dubious, very doubtful history of the complete Quran's authorship too. So this casts a lot of doubt. There's some weird things I also found in the Quran as well. It claims to be the word of God, or people claim it's the word of God, but in chapter 41, verse 09 to 12, it takes God 4 days to create the earth, but he creates the rest of the heavens in 2 days. So it takes him longer to make Earth, a tiny speck of a planet, compared to the rest of the universe. Doesn't this sounds more like a work of man, seeing it from a geocentric perspective? Not a God would be a uniform.
It seems like a the word of a man who thought that the earth was really complex and then the sky was just a blanket wrapped around it.
So this person saw it from
Spherical manner.
it's a person saw it from a geocentric point of view. So this example I found, I was like, this is very weird. So this is where I found, like, this is not the work of a god. And what's interesting, I found it in the Sirah of Ibn Ishaq that not all of the Quran is the literal word of God, even according to Islamic sources. Chapter 19, verse 64 is practically Gabriel's word, what he's saying to Muhammad. So an angel is speaking in 1964. So it's like, it's not exactly God's literal word. An angel, minus one verse, an angel is saying this. So that kind of throws that idea out the window. And then also, this weirdo God, I found these two specific verses, chapter 488 and 1693, where this God causes people to err or causes people to go to the wrong path. So it's like, what's the point then? Like, if you're practically setting people up for failure. So this God seems more like a very narcissistic, especially in the Quran itself. There's more Quranic verses I'll talk about in the following slides as well. But yeah, this is just like another just scratching the surface as well. But yeah, these are three like examples that I find. And again, these are not all the examples I was convinced with, but definitely like these are some examples I was able to remember. That is. And another thing that and this overlaps with this topic, conveniently timed Quranic verses based on the biography of Muhammad. Now, this is chapter 22, verse 52. It was a very conveniently timed verse. It was the Satanic Verses incident, which was a cover for Muhammad's F-up. He was reciting chapter 53, and during that time, he declared Allat, Al-Uzza, and Manat, the pagan Nabatean goddesses, as Ghanarik, or the intercessors to Allah, or they were the cranes, the high-flying cranes. This made all of the Quraysh in Mecca to bow, who were against his monotheism. So they were like, oh, he's accepting our three goddesses. So then he gets a visit from Gabriel, who tells him, hey, that was Satan who whispered in your ear. This seems like a convenient timing. And then hence 2252 covers it up by saying, you are the first prophet to have a longing, and Satan cast doubt in your ear because of that longing. This is chapter 22, verse 52. And this seems very fishy. This seems very fishy too. Another fishy Quranic verse. This is an entire chapter, 111. Abu Lahab is one of Muhammad's cousins, called the uncle of the fire as well. Is some weird, he gave him a nickname too. We don't even have a nickname. People don't even remember his name. It curses Abu Lahab and his wife, and it kind of condemns him to hell and puts his wife like wearing thorns, and she's being boiled and whatnot. And this verse came, according to Sahih al-Bukhari 4971, this was a spur of the moment where Muhammad got offended when his uncle Abu Lahab told him that his Muhammad is saying, oh, I'm the warner for God. So he brings everybody to a particular mountain. And he says, would you believe me if someone's attacking you? People said yes. And he's like, oh, I've come to you as a warner. And Abu Lahab was like, the fuck? Did you just waste my time? So he called him out for wasting his time. And then Muhammad reveals this particular chapter. It's a tiny chapter, but I'm like, this Allah seems to be very interested in Muhammad's personal spite, And then chapter 33, verse 37, allowed his marriage to Zainab bint Jahash, who was the former wife of his adopted son, Zaid bin Harisa. And also another fishy situation as well. Chapter 18 plus 1785 as well. This is where the pagans, they took 3 questions from the rabbis, and they asked Muhammad these questions to prove his prophethood. He promised to answer them the next day. But he took 15 days. He took 15 days, and there was no answer. He promises them tomorrow. And then he got so upset, and then finally Gabriel arrived with the chapter of the cave, which is chapter 18. And then conveniently the story has
Hello.
So he took 15 days, and he just pins the blame on God. That's very convenient timing, don't you think?
Hey, your thing broke up.
Oh shit, did it?
Yeah. So
What part was I at?
yeah. So just let this screen load up. So yeah, the last point you made where he forgot to say inshallah, that's where it
Yeah.
broke up.
Okay, so but he forgot. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
He took 15 days and could not come up with a convenient excuse. So he's like, oh, I forgot to say inshallah. That sounds very fishy. All right, next. So I looked into like Zoroastrianism as well. The Arda Viraf tells the Miraj story from Sahih al-Bukhari. The Miraj story is basically Muhammad going up to the heavens, and he meets the old prophets, and he also meets Allah as well. This story was practically copied from Arda Viraf. Keep in mind, the Miraj story was written by Bukhari in the 9th century. Arda Viraf was written in the 7th century. So one or the other, seems like it borrowed the story. Whoops. All right. Also, the daily 5 prayers in Islam are Fajr, Zuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha, which is sunrise, afternoon, afternoon to sunset, sunset, and night.
Yeah.
The same prayers are in Zoroastrianism, which are called Havan, Rapisvan, Uzran, Avishthutram, I'm probably butchering this, and Ushahin. There's also the month of Ramazan, which was influenced by the Sasanian Bahman. During the Sasanian times, there used to be the month of Bahman as well. Very similar, it was a fasting month, very similar to Ramazan as well. And then there's the Chinwat Bridge, the bridge to between, for the believers to cross, and the Sirat Bridge as well. We'll go into more details between the Chinwat and the Sirat Bridge later. But yeah, this is sort of like an overview of borrowed rituals from Zoroastrianism, the Zoroastrian religion. And now we get more specific. Now, Islam openly discriminates against women. I quoted the first most known verse, the Quran verse 434. It justifies domestic violence in which you are allowed to strike your wife if she is being disobedient. And according to Sahih al-Bukhari, 348,826, which is, I think, book 3, volume 3, book 48, 826. Okay. The witness of a woman is equal to half of a man because of a deficiency in a woman's mind. So if you require 4 male witnesses, you need 8 women witnesses to counter that. Imagine. So a woman's testimony is equal half of a man because she's deficient. And Sahih al-Bukhari.
Yeah, one sec on that very point. I saw this video about, so I forgot the name of the video. It'll be in the description, but it's one of those things where people line up in a line and then they agree to disagree and they discuss.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this woman that said that the statement doesn't exist, or it's a false statement. So people might bring that up. So does it exist, and what is its context?
Wait, I don't get your point.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, just on these points as well.
Mm-hmm.
is the context that you put up there the true context or the true translation?
Oh, definitely.
Because there's many liberals out there that basically say that this stuff is all out of context and that they started feminism.
Oh, this is definitely in context for sure. This
Right.
has been backed up by multiple scholars as well. I'll even go to the next hadith too. The deficiency, not only is the deficiency of a woman's mind, but it's also a deficiency in her religion too. And in the same hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari, he mentions the same thing, 16301, where the witness is equal to half of a man. And Muhammad mentions the deficiency of a woman's religion due to her not being able to pray or fast during menstruation. And this is the excuse apologists use a lot. Just because she's not able to pray or fast during menstruation. Zero relevance. And it's a pathetic excuse, honestly. So he's practically punishing women, degrading women further.
Wait, then I got a real quick question there. If he's punishing them for that, why did he give them that ability to menstruate in the first place?
Exactly. Why did the God give them ability to menstruate in the first place? So he's practically making them less religious due to her not being able to pray or fast during menstruation. You created this. So this kind of puts the blame on Allah, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which makes the things interesting. And then in Sahih al-Bukhari, we have if a husband calls 3237, if a husband calls his wife to bed to have sexual relations and she refuses and causes him to sleep in anger, the angels will curse her till the morning. So a wife cannot refuse to have sex and cause her husband to go angry in Islam. Sunnah ibn Majah, volume 3, the book of marriage, Muhammad's hadith states, I would have commanded women to prostrate to their husbands. No woman can fulfill her duty to Allah until she fulfills her duty towards her husband. If he asks for intimacy, even if she is on a camel's saddle, she should not refuse. Isn't this marital rape? Justifying marital rape right there.
Yeah, you don't ask me, go ask the scholars.
Yeah, it's justifying marital rape. And people say Islam is a feminist religion. This kind of shows it's not. I'll post another hadith, Sunnah ibn Majah, 1986, which states, when Ashras bin Qais, he visited Omar, he saw him beating his wife. He separated them. Then Omar reminds him of the story that Muhammad allowed this domestic violence, the beating of the wife. So,
we'll put the link for the presentation in the description as well, because all these people will try to argue with these claims saying that this is culture, not. Again, I want to ask that question, but I'll phrase it. But they'll say that this is culture, not scripture. But we'll put the actual verses there.
Yeah. I am practically quoting your own scripture right here. This is not even close to culture. Let's move to the next slide. Sahih al-Bukhari 304, which states majority of the dwellers of hellfire are women. Another Islamic text. And now I'm going to post a opinion of a scholar, according to Ayatul As-Sistani. He says that there's no difference between a Muslim woman who refuses to wear the hijab and the disbelieving woman.
I thought it was a choice.
It's not a choice. The term is actually jilbab.
But that's not what BuzzFeed says.
Oh boy.
Why do you laugh? Why do you laugh? BuzzFeed is a journalistic outlet. Why do you laugh?
My foot journalistic outlet. I do want to give them a teaching on Islam one day. The term is jilbab, which is referenced in Quran chapter 24, verse 31 and 33:53. And the only reason for this for this jilbab to exist is to stop women from getting sexually assaulted. Now, this creates a culture of victim blaming. So it's like if a woman gets raped, oh, she didn't wear her hijab. Wow, convenient excuse. This is practically breeding victim culture, victim blaming culture. And not only that, I think there's oral tradition as well, which states that if a woman shows a strand of hair, she will, out of her hijab, she will be 70,000 years in hell. And they do this for God.
Again, I quote, "We're both not women," and then there's women on BuzzFeed that say that this is false.
Honestly, like that would be some next level delusion right there. Because if anything, hijab is mandatory. Yeah, hijab jalbib, the covering is mandatory. So it's the least feminist thing on the planet. So yeah, this is, I've covered like some, what do you call it? Again, I wish I had a lot more time, or like, wish I, or I wish I dedicated my time more to this. I would have found more evidences. Yes, the country of Iran actually, what do you call it? Imprisons or fines women, or punishes women legally for not wearing a hijab. So there's that too. I forgot to include that as well, the Iran's penal code. All right. Another reason I reject, one of the major reasons I rejected Islam, which overlaps with the women, is pedophilia and forced marriage of young girls. Now, Quran 65, chapter 65, verse 4 states the following: "And those who have despaired of the menstruation among your women, if you doubt their waiting period, the iddah period, it's 3 months. And those who not menstruated," Jesus there, translation, "and those who are pregnant, their term until they deliver their burdens. And whoever fears Allah, He will make for him his affair ease." So chapter 65 is talking about divorce, right? Like, what kind of women can you, like, what is the waiting period for women after divorce? So chapter 65 verse 4 mentions those who have not menstruated. Now, Tafsir al-Jalalain says that he talks about those yet to menstruate, those who have not yet menstruated due to young age. Young age. Children.
So basically pre-puberty.
Exactly. Their waiting period is 3 months. So Islam, the Quran is tolerating, and Islam is tolerating child marriage. If you are the Quranist, Tanbir al-Miqbas says, he states the story, what about the waiting period for those who have not yet menstruated due to young age? Their waiting period is 3 months. 2 examples from different tafsirs, classical tafsirs I just gave. And it tolerates prepubescent marriage. Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 7, book 62, hadith 64 states, the Prophet married Aisha when she was 6 years old, consummated the marriage when she was 9 years old. And same with volume 7, hadith 88. Sahih Muslim, book 16, hadith 83 says, Aisha was taken to Muhammad's house as a bride, and she took her dolls with her. She was still doll playing age. Sunan an-Nasai, another Sahih source, book 16, hadith 62. It states, Aisha married Muhammad when she was 9 years old, 6 and 9 years old. All right. So there's consensus that the 9 years is the consensus among scholars. Now this is just
at this point, some arguments that people, like, sorry for playing devil's advocate so much, but I want to get all these points at rest. That at least I see people say that the age or the maturity age was different at the previous time, or the milk was different, as they claim. What's the excuse for, or what's the argument for that?
Why is she taking her dolls with her?
Well, maybe she's an artist and she needs to.
And there's another Fateh al-Bari. I forgot to put that in. Fateh al-Bari states that she didn't even menstruate at that time. Fateh al-Bari, I think one of the volumes, stated that Aisha didn't even reach her menstruation, and she was doll playing age too. So she didn't even menstruate. So that's the response I would give.
Yeah.
And now I just touched the surface. There are more responses to your question right here. It gets worse. All right. Now, these are from modern scholars and, of course, classical scholars. Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, Rule 2428, states the following. If a person marries a non-balagha girl, non-balagha means, balugh means puberty, balugh. So non-balagha is prepubescent girl. It is unlawful for him to have sexual intercourse with her until she has completed 9 lunar years. So until she's 9 lunar years old or 8.5 years old, then you can penetrate her or have sex with her. It gets worse. However, if he does have sexual intercourse with her before then, it will not be unlawful for him to have sexual intercourse with her after she reaches bulugh, even if she has developed a cloacal abnormality. The meaning which was explained in Rule 239. And if she has developed a cloacal abnormality, he must pay her blood money, diya, which is equivalent to the blood money for killing a human being. And he must also pay for her living expenses forever, even after divorce. In fact, based on obligatory precaution, even if that girl marries someone else after getting divorced, he must still pay her living expenses. So the worst thing he can face is just paying.
Alimony.
Basically, that's it. For pedophilia. Instead of being locked in jail, he just pays. That's like a slap on the wrist. Now, I refer to Fateh al-Bari, this is volume 11, page 25, which states the following. Muslim schools of jurisprudence allow the marriage of young girls even if they were still babies in the cradle. And I will also go with Tahrir al-Wasila by Sayyid Khomeini, part 2, page 241, issue 12. He said, it is forbidden to have sex with a wife under 9 lunar years, whether the marriage is temporary or permanent. But all other pleasures, including groping with lust, hand jobs, and thighing, are permissible even to a baby. This is my response to those apologists. And I think we're not done yet. It gets deeper. I'm going deep into the iceberg. Now, this is Ibn Qudama in Shara al-Kabir. He says that with regard to females, the father may give his minor virgin daughter who has not yet reached the age of 9 in marriage, and there is no difference of opinion concerning that if he gives her in marriage to someone who is compatible. Ibn al-Mundhir said, all of those scholars from whom we acquired knowledge unanimously agreed it is permissible for a father to give his minor daughter in marriage if he arranges her to someone compatible. And it is permissible for him to do that even if she's reluctant. This is forced marriage, marital rape, pedophilia, right there. I'll even say this. There's a commentary for Sahih Muslim called Sharh al-Muslim, volume 3, page 577, which states, all Sunni schools of thought agree, as for the time a young girl, a married girl, goes to her husband for sex, it is permissible at any time, given there is no harm to the girl and both the husband and the girl's guardian or father approve. So the sex has to be approved by only the guardian and the husband. So fuck consent. Now, according to Ahmed Hanbali, the founder of the Hanbali school of thought, if they don't agree, she is forced to join her husbands for sexual intercourse at 9 years. Now, another modern book I looked into, The Five Schools of Islamic Law by Muhammad Jawad Makhniya, page 267, which states the Hanafis school of thought, the Hanafis state that the minimum age for maturity for a girl to be married is 9 years and 12 years for a boy. This is child marriage right here. Rad al-Muhtar, volume 5, page 283 says, intercourse is not limited to any age. Withstanding penetration means being able to withstand it from a penis or another object in breaking the hymen. This cannot be determined by a minimum age. For example, fat girls can withstand intercourse even if they're very young. In other words, even if they're children. That's according to this.
This is really scary.
Yeah.
And to anyone who disagrees or has any issues,
Yeah.
please do message us and we'll kindly have a discussion with you to see why, because this is a very serious issue.
And this is from Islamic jurisprudence. I touched the Quran, I touched the Hadith, and I've touched scholarly opinions as well as commentaries on this. There's no denying that there is pedophilia and child marriage in Islam. There's no denying of this. This is something I have to make clear. Now, along with that, I will end that topic there because, we'll recover a bit. Now I'm going to go on the topic of it discriminates against Jews and Christians specifically. So the Quran, chapter 5, verse 51 states the following. Oh, you have who you have believed. Do not take Jews and Christians as allies, as they are allies of each other. If any from among you is an ally to them, they are indeed one of them. Indeed, Allah guides not the wrongdoing people. So,
isn't he the same damn? I gotta ask this. Isn't he the same goddamn God? Isn't he the same guy?
He's the same guy to not take Jews and Christians as allies or friends. Now let's see how.
It's like telling the three people. It's like three brothers like having to be separated by that. They're the same.
Yeah,
they pray to the same guy.
Yeah, it's the same. They're praying to the same guy, but the same guy is telling them fuck these other guys. So here, Quran chapter 5:41. I summarized these verses because they are long verses. So in essence, it says Jews will listen to any lie. Quran 5:82 says Jews and pagans are most hateful to Muslims or believers. Quran 2:65 states Jews are apes for transgressing the Sabbath. Sahih al-Bukhari, I think book 5, is it book 5, volume 5? Volume 5, book 58, hadith 227, shows Moses weeping because more Muslims will be in heaven compared to the Jews. And Sahih al-Muslim 26:5389, do not greet Jews and Christians. If you find them on roads, force them to the narrowest part of it. Isn't this bullying? Now there's more. Sahih al-Muslim 41:6981 to 6985. The last hour will not come unless Muslims and Jews will fight. If they hide, all stones and trees will shout that the Jews are hiding there, except the Gharqad tree. Now, if you ask a Jew what the hell a Gharqad tree is, they won't know. So this is where I'm like, hang on a second. This makes no sense. Why are we fighting? Isn't this a loving God? Now, Tafsir ibn Qasir on Quran 5:51, he relates the story where Omar, the second caliph, orders a Christian scribe to be driven out of the capital, Medina, just because he's Christian. This is one of Muhammad's companions, by the way. Contemporary scholar Yusuf al-Qaradawi stated that Jews exaggerated the Holocaust, and what Hitler did was a divine punishment for them. This is a scholar's opinion. Another classical scholar, Al-Jahiz, from 869, stated that the Jewish race was denied high mental qualities, sound physique, and superior lactation. I don't know what the hell this is. The same results when camels, horses, donkeys...
I gotta ask a question. Don't Ashkenazi Jews have the highest IQ on average, like per capita or on average?
I don't know, but according to
because they have the highest percentage of Nobel laureates.
Exactly. Yet, according to this Al-Jahiz, the Jewish race was denied high mental qualities. See how it completely contradicts reality? And
no,
this,
like that just... And yeah, no, like I can put that statistic up there in the description as well, where like, yeah, no, they have the like the highest number of Nobel laureates, the highest number of corporate investment bankers, like the richest people are all Jewish. Like it's like this is totally false. Like I'm not defending any one person here. I don't believe in any of them, but like this is so false.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, I kind of wanted to bring in like this non-believers. It overlaps with the Jews and Christians. This one overlaps. I wish I had more time to put more verses in there, but I apologize for not putting as many resources. But I got two specific verses, the sword verse. Then when have passed the sacred months, then kill the polytheists, non-believers, wherever you find them, and seize them and besiege them and sit and wait for them at every place of ambush. But if they repent and establish prayer and give zakah, then leave their way. Indeed, Allah is often forgiving and most merciful. Doesn't this sound like a mafia to you? Nick? Hello?
Sorry, was muted there, but yeah, no, it's definitely mafia-esque.
And because again, the non-believers I also cover in apostates too, right? So it's a lot of overlap. That's why this is a smaller section, because I'm like, I've already covered this with the Jews and Christians as well as apostates and blasphemy. So I've covered a lot. So yeah, Quran 9:29 orders the collection of jizya, which is extortion masking as tax. People say, oh, it's just the same as tax. Keep in mind, jizya has no upper limit. This one's a big one that I'll go into. Homophobia and killing the members of the LGBTQ+. Now, Quran chapter 7 verse is 80 to 84. He punishes the people of Lot for being homosexuals. The Quran even calls homosexual men ignorant in chapter 27 verse 55. It even overlaps with the Torah as well. In chapter 20 verse 13, there's a death penalty for homosexuality. And this influenced Sunnah Abu Dawood, which stated, if you find anyone doing as Lot's people did, kill the one who does it and kill the one whom it is done. This one is graded Hasan Sahih, which is second highest, second most reliable. But it is pretty damn reliable as an Islamic source.
Yeah, I got a question about this. So when I was doing my research on my end, they basically say that having the thoughts is not the bad part. You'll get forgiven, but acting upon it is the bad part.
For homosexuality, yes, that is the case for homosexuality in Islam.
And then they keep comparing it. So the comparison I always see it to is incest and pedophilia,
which is not.
Yeah,
it's another example of a false equivalence. I just stated pedophilia, legal pedophilia allowance in Islam. So it's like, where's your religion allows pedophilia? What the hell? Like, and yet two consenting adults of the same sex cannot have intercourse. That's sad, honestly. Now,
in that case, we can probably just say that it probably wasn't as common in that time, as opposed to child marriage. Because like a lot of people would marry off for the sake of dowry and stuff, but like this doesn't give you dowry or land or anything. That's why they probably made it illegal.
But even then, is it really this harsh? Does it have to be this harsh that you actually give them a death penalty? And I'll get to the punishment specifically. So,
Yeah.
and also the fact that there were people from this community, the LGBTQ plus, who did exist in history. Like Alexander, one of the greatest conquerors in the world, was bisexual. So there you have it. The Sunni Hanafi school of thought states that punishment of homosexuality is up to the ruler. So the only lenient school is Hanafi. However, the Shafi school of thought, which states 100 lashes or being stoned to death. The Maliki and Hanbali which of the Sunni say death, and the Shia Jafari school of thought also says death penalty. Now, this is from a quote of one of Muhammad's uncles, Ibn Abbas, which stated he suggested the punishment for homosexuals to be dropped from the highest point of the city while tied up. And this is what ISIS copied. Sahih al-Bukhari, 772-774. So the Prophet cursed effeminate men, those men who are the similitude, assume the manners of women, and those women who assume the manners of men. And he said, turn them out of your houses. And the Prophet turned out such and such man, and Umar turned out such and such woman. So basically, if you have a child who's trans or just effeminate or queer, you're supposed to banish them from your home. Ali bin Abu Talib's punishment on the authority of Malik bin Atiyah. This is stated in the Shia Hadith Al-Kafi and Al-Tahzib. He states 3 punishments for homosexuality: a deadly strike of the sword to the neck, or thrown from the mountaintop with hands and legs tied up, or burnt in the fire. Now, Saudi Arabia, and I'm going to use now Muslim countries as well, just to drive the point home. Saudi Arabia has a maximum punishment for beheading for homosexuality. You can get beheaded for this. In Malaysia, you get jailed, you're fined, you're whipped, you're deported or castrated. In Brunei, death by stoning for gay men. For lesbian women, caning and imprisonment. For Iran, Sudan, and Yemen, a death penalty. So this is Islam for the members of LGBTQ. And now I'll actually, from here, I stated punishments. This overlaps with these punishments, harsh and barbaric punishments for petty crimes and harmless activity. Now, first I'll state the punishment for armed robbery. The armed robber's hand and feet are amputated. And this is assuming he didn't kill anyone. The Maliki school of thought crucifies the armed robber. And by the way, I'm taking this from the book of the schools of jurisprudence, the encyclopedia, that is. So all the jurisprudence schools have their rulings in that encyclopedia. Thank you, Master Arab, for that link. For the petty thief, Quran chapter 5, verse 38 allows the chopping of the hands of the thief, whether male or female. Sahih al-Bukhari 6799 states, if a man steals an egg, helmet, or rope, his hand is to be cut off. Imagine, you just stole an egg just because you're hungry, and you get your hand cut off. Sahih Muslim. Now we get to adultery. Sahih Muslim 174191. Punishment for adultery: 100 lashes, and banishment for 1 year. Sahih al-Bukhari gets worse, 989, 293. Stoning the adulterer to death. Quran 24, verse 2. Flog the fornicator or adulterer, or the person who commits zina, 100 times and banish them. These are some very barbaric punishments right here. So this is why I reject Islam, because this is a very barbaric ideology, and these are very barbaric punishments. Another aspect of Islam I wanted to discuss was, and I think you and I discussed this, Nikhil, it easily accepts converts, but punishes and even kills apostates. Do you recall that
Especially if
conversation?
yeah, we did, and especially if the convert's Gora.
Yeah, the convert Gora in the Genetonic show with Stops and I think Rob, we had this conversation, and I think even Thunderous was there, I believe. But anyway, Quran 5:54 states the following: "O you have believed, whoever among you should leave his faith, soon Allah will produce a people he will love and who will love him, humble towards the believers, powerful against disbelievers, fighting in the way of Allah. And do not fear the blame of the critic. That is the blame of the critic. That is the favor of Allah. He bestows it upon whom He wills. Allah is all-encompassing and all-knowing." Ah, such a lovely Allah. He's saying, don't worry about people like me. Do not fear Him. Allah will put His favor on you. Right. Now, Quran chapter 9:66 states, if you leave religion after accepting, oh my goodness, I put whatever. After accepting, we have to punish you. So it does state that we have to punish you. It says, oh, we can't spare you. So there's like this little debate, like if we spare you or not in that specific verse. Now, Sahih al-Bukhari 452-260 states, in which Ibn Abbas, one of Muhammad's uncles, yet again states, if a Muslim discards his religion, kill him. Another modern scholar, Yusuf al-Qaradawi, I think we mentioned this guy earlier. He says, Islam only exists only because people fear being murdered if they leave. He stated that on in an interview. And in order to convert to Islam, all you have to say is the Shahada with conviction. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, or there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is the messenger. Simple as that. It's all you need to convert. But if you want to leave, we kill you. Now, I'll even discuss the Shia Islam as well, because I want to keep it all fair. In Shia Islam, according to alislam.org, there's two kinds of apostates, milli and fitri apostate. A fitri is where the apostate has Muslim parents and leaves Islam. And a milli one is the one who is converted. He converts from a non-Muslim background and then leaves Islam. A female, either milli or fitri, if she does not repent, she is flogged and imprisoned. A male milli apostate is subject to a death penalty. He's subject. That may or may not be the case. He's still subject to it. And a male fitri apostate is executed. So a person like me is definitely executed. And even if you're in a foreign country, their spouses become non-halal for them and they're forced to be divorced. This is why I reject this religion.
One of the many reasons why you do.
Oh yeah, one of the many reasons why I do. And I stated so many reasons. I think I'm just going on and on. It punishes free speech and expression with blasphemy laws. So Quran 5:33, cut off the limbs of the person who wages war against Allah and spreads mischief. Specifically the word mischief. I think Tafsir ibn Qasir specified that, this is also like, someone who's like committing blasphemy. Quran 6:93 states, who can be more wicked than the one who invents a lie against Allah? So basically, blasphemy is one of the biggest sins. In Sirah of Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham, Muhammad ordered the killing of Asma bint Marwan for opposing Muhammad by reciting poetry. Muhammad ordered the killing of Abu Afaq, the Jewish poet, for opposing him. Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham, as well as Ibn Sa'd even tells the story as well, one of the authors. According to Sunnah Abu Dawud 38, 4349, a Jewess used to disparage Muhammad. A man strangled her to death. Muhammad declared no penalty for the killer. So basically, screw free speech. Iran, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Afghanistan are countries where blasphemy is punishable by death. In the Hanbali, Shafi, and Jafri schools, blasphemy is punishable by death. In the Hanafi school, death if the blasphemer is a Muslim, beating for a woman, and other punishments for non-Muslims. Maliki school of thought says mandatory death for men. Women can be coerced or tortured enough to repent. And this is just blasphemy.
So I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to be your punishment if you were to go to one of these countries?
Oh, death. Here it's death. Pakistan, it's death. My Shia school, death. If I go to the Maliki, yep, death. So I have all death written all over my place. And I
apologize for that.
Oh yeah, I am facing a death penalty based on Islamic law. All right. Now, it uses the fear of hell to keep followers in line. There's a lot of Quranic verses that talks about hell where it says, I tried to narrow down so much because there's so many. Chapter 47:15, it shows the contrast of hell dwellers drinking scalding liquid that burns their livers. And it also
doesn't burn the throat.
Yeah, it doesn't burn, but it burns the livers. Surely the hypocrites will enter the lowest level of hell. And there's an oral tradition.
Okay. So you mean BuzzFeed people will be in the lowest place of hell?
Exactly. Oral tradition. If a woman, this is an oral tradition. If a woman shows one strand of hair from her hijab, she will be equal to 70,000 years in hell. This is oral tradition. This is very common in countries like Malaysia and Indonesia. According to Bihar al-Anwar, a woman is hung by the breasts for avoiding intercourse with her husband. Some of them are hung by breasts for being lesbians. The Quran also describes the flames of hell that cackle and roar. And it also describes the boiling waters. Very descriptive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy this description? All right. So as I didn't want to focus too much on heaven, but yeah, I did find some few verses because I wanted to focus on like the topics, so like pedophilia and discrimination against women. But I did find some content with male sex and drinking fantasies in heaven. So the Huris or virgins, they're mentioned in chapter 56, verse 36 and 37. And also in chapter 44, 51, 57, shall wed them unto fair ones with wide eyes. And they're even described as big-breasted too. And according to Tirmidhi, one will have the strength of 100 men sexually in heaven. And there are rivers of milk, wine, and honey in chapter 47, verse 15. Isn't that a beautiful heaven?
Well, what about for the females?
Oh, nothing. They just get to enjoy the view, the relaxing view of rivers and honey and milk and wine. That's it. And the gardens. They just get to enjoy the gardens. That's it.
Isn't that stuff halal though? Or haram? Or whatever it is?
Wine is haram, but you get to have it in heaven. And you get to have sex with women in heaven, even though it's haram. But what can you do? Yeah, there was also like
Only another problem I had with Islam, I'll go briefly through this. Believers can only enter heaven. And these believers will be seeing the suffering of those in hell and laugh at them, according to chapter verses 46 to 51. I did not post the entire verse because this would have been long.
Yeah.
Belief in Allah is the only criteria to enter paradise. In Quran chapter 2, verse 63, it includes believers, Jews, Christians, and Sabians. And Sabians is an old group of Christians as well that I think extinct at this moment. I'm not sure. But yeah, like to enter paradise, you have to be a believer in one God. So the basic criterion is Tawheed or oneness of God. Be a monotheist. That's it. That's your criteria.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to do good deeds as well. So so I actually posted this link. Hey Nick, there are 10 easy ways to get a thawab. If you can't get the S word, like I want to be Arab, the more thawab you get, the higher reward it is in heaven. Do you want to see this?
Sure.
All right. So open this link. You can see the link, right? All right.
Yeah.
10 easy ways to earn a thawab in a minute. In a minute.
So sawabs are like points, right?
Points to enter heaven. Of course, Amna Anwar. So take a minute, praise Allah, and say Subhanallahi, Alhamdulillah 100 times in under a minute. You can recite Surah Fatiha thrice in a minute, which is the first chapter of the Quran. Once gain more 600 blessings. Jesus Christ. It is never too late to seek forgiveness from Allah. Say astaghfirullah as many times in a minute to seek forgiveness. In 1 minute, you can recite Surah Ikhlas 20 times. It's equal to 1/3 of the Quran. And if recited 20 times, you've read the Quran 7 times. And remember our Prophet in 1 minute, send blessings to him. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Give him blessings. And Allah will shower you with double blessings. Oh dear. Some easy ways to get sawabs and points. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Oh, hang on. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There's no strength and no power except Allah. My mom would say this pretty fast, actually. It's one of the jewels of Jannah. And then there's also like Sahih Muslim, remove harmful things on the roads of Muslims. Take a minute to ponder about the blessings of Allah. If you see someone in distress, only take a minute. Acts of kindness. Okay, which I don't have a problem with. A Muslim is a brother of another Muslim, so he should not oppress him. So whoever brought his Muslim brother out of a discomfort, Allah will. So it's only Muslim brothers too. Sahih al-Bukhari 622. Lastly, one of the most beautiful ways to earning glad tidings is La ilaha illallah 50 times. These words are so easy to get you points, isn't it? So yeah, easy ways to get points. Want to slap these individuals. Oh yeah, I wanted to this is also another topic I want to delve deep into.
And we'll do that in another episode as well.
Another episode, like Doomsday, especially, right? This obsession with Doomsday, because this is something very fascinating. It needs a presentation of its own. Muhammad is asked for the signs of hour in chapter 33, verse 63. And the Quran mentions the hour. The hour is like Judgment Day, right? And there's a failed prophecy where Sahih Muslim, chapter 71, 40, 50 says, Muhammad is like, this boy would not grow old when the hour comes. And he points to a specific boy. But it's almost 1400 years old now. Where is this boy? And this is another link, which is the Mahdi. So the Mahdi is also known as the savior in Islam. So the 8 hadiths regarding the Mahdi. So these are hadiths. There are so many hadiths. So this is where also it covers, Judgment Day as well. Mahdi will be from the family of Prophet Muhammad. yeah, the sources are here. He will spread justice and equality. Mahdi will rise. Go away. I don't want to get email notifications. The Mahdi will emerge within a single night. He will be a descendant of Fatima. He will be from the Prophet of Muhammad's army. An army will proceed from Syria to attack Mahdi and be swallowed into the ground. So this might have influenced like even people who liked the ISIS fantasies. And Jesus will descend and pray behind Mahdi. There's still Jesus as well. So yeah, there's these doomsday fantasies as well. And last, oh, this is a good one. It promotes Arab supremacy. Now, God only listens to prayers, or Allah listens to prayers in Arabic. And according to Sahih Muslim 3563, the people of Kanana, the Quraysh and Bani Hashim have preference over anyone else. And these are all Arabs. The du'as are in Arabic. And I will state a scholarly opinion here, Ibn Taymiyyah, which states the following. The Arabs are more intelligent than those other than themselves and are more capable in delivery and expression. Verily, what the people of the Sunnah are upon is the belief that the Arab race is better than the non-Arab race. Whether the non-Arabs are Hebrews, Aramaic, Romans, Persians, and other than them, not simply due to the fact that the Prophet, peace be upon them, is from them, even though this is of superiority, but instead they themselves are superior within themselves. For Allah most highly has designated the Arabs and their language with rulings that are peculiar and unique. Ibn Taymiyyah from Iqtiga al-Sirat al-Mustaqim, volume 2, page 399, 431. It sounds a bit racist, doesn't it?
Yeah. Quite
So
racist.
Yeah, quite racist. So this is one of the points I wanted to point out to Arab supremacy. And yeah, I think I discussed in, an example that ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Taliban are not exactly practicing the wrong Islam. They know their religion too well and are simply following the teachings. I will link a channel to the Masked Arab who did an amazing series on how ISIS can justify their crimes. I will use the example of sex slaves. In chapter 4, verse 24, they're referred to as right-hand possessions. And we've seen recently that, the Tafsir ibn Qasir, Sahih al-Bukhari, I'll try to find these hadiths which state that the women who are captured in battle can be used for sexual intercourse by the fighters. And the Taliban were just recently taking women as wives for the fighters. That's sexual slavery right there. So they can definitely, so overall, this is just one example I'm using, but as we stated the laws previously, it creates precedent for terrorist groups like ISIS. And of course, this ties into ISIS as well, the concept of jihad, which is the armed struggle. And there's the concept of a qisas, which is revenge killing, which allows murder and retaliation. If a man from your tribe is killed, you kill a man. A woman for your tribe, another woman is killed from the tribe. A slave is killed for a slave. Only innocent people are getting killed in this practice. And instead of the murder, only innocent people. What the hell? And yes, offensive jihad. The Sirah of Ibn Ishaq states that Muhammad orders the caravan of the Quraysh to be attacked. This sparked the Battle of Badr. People say, oh, the infidels attacked first. But no, there's no indication of that in Sirah of Ibn Ishaq. Muhammad orders the attacking of the caravan. And I will post more, we'll do more on war and genocide as well. This is also a big topic as well that we will dive deep into. I apologize for the lack of, because this is one deep topic as well too. Quran chapter 47 verse 35 states, do not be slack and ask for peace when you have the upper hand. It's like, keep fighting. Like Quran is actually, and also it promotes infighting. So we know the Shia versus Sunni rivalry, right? The two sects. Now, Ibn Taymiyyah, he refers to Shia Muslims as Rawafid, rejectionists. a derogatory term, which means that they reject the first three caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, and Usman. This is another interesting topic to the Shia-Sunni divide as well. And he stated, if you find them, and kill them, for they are polytheists. And this is in Saram al-Maslul, where Ibn Taymiyyah, also known as Sheikh al-Islam, is telling Sunni Muslims to kill Shia Muslims. So there you have it. And yeah, I wanted to touch on the unreliable history of Islam. Also another topic I love to get into. And yeah, hopefully, Nick, I think you got me for more content here. So in the 7th century, we find like no historical evidence of any Islamic practice, like I stated earlier, right? We have no Islamic practice before that. No one knew the religion of the Arabs during the conquests. There's a document called Doctrina Jacobi, which talks of a prophet in Palestine. But this is in 634. Muhammad wasn't even supposed to be alive in 632. And this is according to the Islamic narrative. He never said that he has the keys to paradise, and actually died before the Arabs invaded Palestine. So this contradicts the Islamic narrative, if he even existed. So the coins also start appear only in the 690s during the reign of Abdul Malik. And there's a theory that I really like, or conjecture, which is the possibility that the early Arabs weren't even Muslims to begin with. A good chance of being Christian, due to the Hassanid and Lahmid kingdoms being predominantly Christian kingdoms. And now I end this long presentation, and here I say, if someone says you need to learn Islam, here's my final word. Slap yourself for this stupidity, please, or I will come and smack you one. I just stated the facts from multiple sources, multiple scholars, etc. I don't need to talk to a scholar when I just quoted multiple scholars right here. And I think...
And to those people who do say that there is something false or there's something wrong or whatever, please come and visit my channel, message me or Mustafa, and we can get an actual discussion going on this topic, because a lot of the things that we mentioned here are really realistic. They exist. We provided all the evidences, and if one of our evidences is wrong, we'll happily correct ourselves. Or if you like one of the evidences, where it refutes your point, you have to change your mind on that as well.
Or even if you have something to add to the evidence as well, you're more than welcome to share if you're wanting. But these are some of the reasons I personally stated. And you can see I kind of dived deep into this. I dove in pretty deep. And these are many reasons I rejected this faith. And these are plenty. So it's justified on my end that I can reject this faith and this religion itself. You have any questions, Nick? Any
So yeah,
thoughts?
on that specific note, how does this relate to current events? Especially if, let's say, someone like the Taliban who entered into Afghanistan, or the people who claim that kind of troubles that the woman in Afghanistan now have is the same as France for the banning of religious symbols outside. How does it compare with these reasonings?
It's a false comparison, because France is not selling your women to sex slavery. It's not, flogging your women in public. It is just, it has banned the niqab, which is the full covering. And also France has banned these symbols for all religions, not just the Muslims, for the hijab. And they have kind of like restricted the hijab for girls under 18. So they've, if you're over 18, I think you can wear a hijab, but just not in specific places. So that law, it cannot be compared to what the Taliban is doing. Taliban has massacred innocent civilians. People are running away from them. They've incited fear. They've blocked roads. in the past they've imprisoned people, they've executed people, they are a terrorist group. They have fought with they've killed innocent
Now,
people, soldiers as well. So
on that
and so
very point, so what you mentioned, all these points and everything, how close is that to the representation of what that organization believes? And how close is it to the representation of what an average person who goes to work, comes home, wants to feed his family believes?
exactly all of this, what I just mentioned, Taliban knows this. Taliban knows these laws, and they will implement the most brutal aspect of their law based on mostly Hanafi teachings, because most of them are Hanafi, from the Hanafi school of thought. And they're the extremist version of Hanafi, which is Deobandi school of thought, which is a movement within the Hanafi school of thought. So the Deobandi will implement these more strictly. So,
Yeah.
um, they will implement closely to the Hanafi, but they might implement the others as well too, that I stated.
Yeah.
I stated that these are plain and simple. They're going to follow the rules of what their God or their prophet says. They're going to do it. They're going to follow. They're going to follow these rules, and they're going to, they're going to massacre people if they have to. They're going to label people as infidels if they have to. They're going to
So
charge
on
jizya.
that, I know a lot of people, because of the current situation, are afraid of common people who just follow a book. And like I have to say this as well, 99%, I assume 99% of the people that follow it just have kids at home. They go to work, they come home, they eat, they take care of the kids, and they go to sleep, and then it's like a cycle, right? So do I have to be worried about the average person who believing all these things, or is this something that's out of the mind of a common person?
No, definitely, like the common person is unaware or uneducated in this matter, and they've only been given the rosy picture, right? Had they been given this picture of what Islam really is, they might have left. Just like myself, I was that person. I left, and a lot of sensible people might leave or choose to convert to a different religion.
Yeah.
So, if anything,
Anyways,
however,
yeah.
there will be people who still hold fundamentalist values, but they're kind of secret about it. So you also have to be watching out for those people as well. Okay, this is for
In your so the only reason why I asked that is like I know this as well, but like just for the people who do watch this and are scared. So just as a common thing out there, that's the only reason why I asked. No need, like even if they know and believe all this, they don't have the time to actually go through with anything like this.
exactly.
And yeah, like even if, like they got kids to feed, they got all these things. So like if you really want to target the ideology itself rather than the
Target
people
the
who follow
ideology,
it, because this is a
not the regular follower who's living in secular societies, and and they want to be in part of secular societies. They will contribute to your economy and your society. So if they're good members, good standing members of your society, don't target them. Don't bully
yeah.
them.
And final question as well, because I know we're reaching the 2 hour mark.
Yeah.
Final question I want to ask is, do you believe in a reform of taking away all these bad quotes or laws or whatever, or do you just want to eradicate the ideology itself?
Good question, actually. I honestly don't know, to be honest. I'd rather have a reform. I'd rather have the reform because, people kind of need an ideology, right? They need something
Yeah.
to believe in. But the question is, how much are they going to eradicate? Because there's a lot. That's going to be a tough question. So I think it's going to be similar, but what I predict is going to be similar to the Christian Renaissance, that is, where ideas against Christianity became more and more acceptable. Like, criticizing Jesus became more acceptable. So I think the Muslim community will go through that transition and will eventually, come out of this smarter, wiser, or at least more subtle about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I hope for, honestly.
Yeah. And yeah, so thank you so much for this presentation. And the next installment of this, just so it doesn't look like we're targeting one person, will be a presentation from my side on my journaling and why I am the way I am. So please watch out for that part. And also the description will have a GoFundMe with all the details of the charities we decide to donate to. And if you have any questions about what's going on, any sort of death threats or any threats will be followed up with the legal procedures that are required for it. But any form of open dialogue to correct us is more than welcome.
Perfect.
Any final words, Mustafa?
No final words. Thank you so much for having me. We'll do this. I'm looking forward to hearing your side as well, your story, and looking to do more of these presentations as well. Hopefully, like, we can fix the time, and then, we can record this once again. Actually, more times now, because it's fun. All right, Nick. All right, everybody. Have a good night.
Good morning or afternoon.
Afternoon, depending on time zone.
Yeah.
All right, take care.
Take care, guys.